Jerry. Jerry. We're gonna do mindfulness right away. So I have lemon ginger, chocolate, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, lavender chocolate, or coffee chocolate.
Oh my gosh.
What would you like?
Coffee chocolate.
Much snow on Pike Lake.
And I also have.
Kinda buried.
Yeah.
So don't eat that till I say go.
I didn't measure.
Hold that till I say go, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we
Kind
have,
of buried all over.
we have everyone here, and we're a little late, sorry, we were doing technical adjustments and waiting for Jerry, which is fine. So we're going to go slightly off before we do approval of the consent agenda. On the Mental Health Advisory Board, we've been talking about mindfulness and how to incorporate that into daily lives. And for some people, that sounds strange. What does that mean? And so today we're going to do a little bit of what does that mean. So each one of us here today has a little piece of chocolate in front of you. And what I would like you to do is, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes, but you don't have to. I would like you to put the chocolate in your mouth and don't chew it. Just set it on your tongue and feel the chocolate melting. Feel the flavor, the sensation, whether it's soft, whether it's smooth, if it has any pieces of flavor in it. Is it grainy? And just take 2 minutes to feel how that chocolate feels as you're eating it. Go ahead, Dave.
And meow.
You can have that now. This one, everyone's watching us eat chocolate. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate? This one here. Go ahead and feel that sensation. Plus it looks so much better than chewing. You guys look fabulous. All right, so I will just begin the meeting. Great job, you guys. That was amazing to see you all peacefully enjoying your chocolate and smiling, and poor Frankie walked into a dead silent meeting that had already started. Don't worry, you'll get a treat later, Frankie. So, thank you all for entertaining me on that and letting those out that are viewing us have a little insight into what mindfulness is. Today we're going to do a review of 2019 with Allison, and part of why I wanted mindfulness because I want you all to be prepared to listen to all of the wonderful things that have happened over the last year. So we will start with the approval of the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then next we have the election of the 2020 board chair and vice chair. So during the county board meeting, the county commissioners had decided that a vice chair would move into the chair position, and our vice chair is Ginny, and she is unable to perform the duties of the chair at this time. So is anyone interested in the chair position? Okay, we'll do it the easier way. Who can't be the chair?
Like, who doesn't want it?
Yeah. Interesting. So we just have 3 people, so it's Dave and I. So there'll be chair and vice chair. How would you like to do it, Dave? Want to toss a chocolate?
I nominate Heidi for chair.
That solved it. All right, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, no other nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I nominate Dave as vice chair. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, we have Dave as vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. I was kind of hoping that whole chocolate thing would make you not want to have me as chair. I guess that backfired. Just kidding. All right, now for some fun stuff. We have, I'm so glad I have medication that I can't cry, you guys. We have Carla and Jerry, who it feels like you've been here forever because you've been here as long as I have and longer. Thank you so much for all of your service.
Thank you.
That you have done here. Brian's going to take a picture of you too. We should probably hold those up so he can see those.
One more.
Thanks, Brian. So, we have lots of changes that happened in the last year that Allison's going to kind of cover with us today. So we had the advisory board that these two were our chair and vice chair and have been at many, many of our public health meetings here filling us in. And then we created the mental health advisory board. And with the changes to that, each of those boards still have a chair and vice chair, but we are having the chair from each of those committees sit in these positions, which is a change. And those seats have changed. So now we have Roger Linehan here and Andrea Orest, who are the new chairs of those two committees that will fill into these seats. But we didn't want to let you leave without recognizing you. So it's up to you two if you want to complete your roles in these seats today, or if you would like to hand the baton over. Oh, they're shaking their heads at me.
We sort of crooked it up that we would finally move out there and they would come up here.
Excellent. Shaking their heads or not, they get to move out. And you'll be here as support staff if there's any questions. So, and the other thing is we do have extra chairs, so Andrea and Roger, we could all sit up here as a big party if you want to do it that way also. So you get to finish out the day up here. Come forward, kids. We'll put you here.
I guess we could,
You can stay here and help support them. We're not going to boot you out of your chairs.
don't they
We
need
can
the
adjust.
mics?
They don't need mics. We got a mic right there.
Okay.
You don't have to sit up here if you don't want to.
So we have Andrea, she's our Mental Health Advisory Chair, and we have Roger, a Public Health and Human Service Advisory Chair. You can sit wherever you feel comfortable. Whichever is the most comfortable. Welcome, guys. Thank you. We're just going to do all sorts of different things today.
May I say one thing, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You've both done a wonderful job. I've been able to serve with you for a number of the years that you've been chairs. I've learned from you, I think.
And at this time, if anyone else would like to share peace, love, and happiness. Allison?
Of course. I, again, would just like to thank Jerry and Carla for your many years of service. I want to thank you from a very personal place as well. You both have been great mentors to me over the last 2 years that I've been learning in this new position. I was thinking back to my very first advisory committee meeting when I first joined Cook County Public Health and Human Services, and I took minutes at that meeting. And it was a really intense introduction to the advisory committee. The group was talking about, it was just after the Sandy Hook shooting, and you were discussing an article called Adam Lanza's mother, who was one of the shooters, or the shooter at Sandy Hook, and it was from the perspective of a mother of a child with severe mental illness and sharing her experiences. And I just remember at that time thinking, this is really important work that's happening here, and seeing Jerry and Carla and Sue kind of navigating this really difficult discussion, I knew that I was a part of something important. So I just want to thank you both for your leadership, for the experience and skills that you've brought to the committee and to the department and to the community. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Carla
I
had her
just
hand
want-
up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I have been passionate about social services since early childhood, and the flame's alive. And I have watched Allison and this group just blossom. I was aware of the range of services you've heard me say and the quality, but in the last few years, I think it's even soared more. And it's been a real privilege, and I really appreciate this board that is compassionate and humanitarian in making their decisions for the people that need it in the county.
Thank you, Carla. Jerry?
Well, in today's world, we so often hear people being critical of government, and I just want to say that this board and our county's government and PHHS and is an example of good government, and I just feel a real sense of privilege and gratitude about being able to be a part of that, and in some small way, if I could make a contribution to that, it felt like, wow, this was meaningful, this was worthwhile to be doing. So I want to thank you all for being who you are and operating as good government the way you do, and thanks to Allison, who's been so supportive and helpful to us as people on the committee. And we have PHHS is a great part of Cook County's government. It's essential, it's vital, and it's people whose heart is in the right place. And I'm just proud to have had a connection to that and had a part in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for shaping public health. You two are a vital part of what has helped us grow, and your leadership will help future generations. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, on to more recognition and happy fun stuff.
Okay, so I get to be the staff report today, which is exciting. I've prepared a year in review. Last year, I think, was the first time in my memory that we had put together kind of a retrospective of what happened in the department over the course of a year. So here's 2019, a few of the highlights. Cook County PHHS has our own mission statement in addition to the county mission statement. This was written by department staff in 2013. So staff reviewed the mission statement that we had for many, many years, made some proposed changes, voted, and elected this as our mission statement. It's supporting the health, safety, and well-being of our community. We also have core values, which are accountability, respect, integrity, honesty, and partnership. Who we are and what we do. We are made up of 27 staff in PHHS who deliver and connect residents to supportive services, including economic assistance and healthcare programs. Those are financial assistance programs like nutrition support, cash assistance, temporary funding for people who are in need of financial supports to get them through. Our staff also provides social services, case management, and care coordination. And then the Public Health Department is responsible for community health promotion and improvement and public health preparedness. Those are just two of the 6 essential areas of public health, but those really best describe the model that we have here in PHHS. Because in addition to our staff, we have a number of contracted services that we provide as well, or that we administer. So in addition to direct services, our staff provide administrative functions for billing, grant management, contract management, reporting, and customer service. We have a number of contracted service providers, as I mentioned, and licensed programs that we provide oversight for. So that includes administration of federal, state, and local grants to many community partners. Among those are AEOA for employment and training services, Carleton County for child support. The Sawtooth Mountain Clinic offers a spectrum of public health programming through grants that we subcontract through the Community Health Board. That includes the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, Child and Teen Checkup, a number of community health education and outreach programming. The photo here is of some local students participating in the Walking School Bus, which is one of the programs that's supported through the county and Sawtooth Mountain Clinic in the statewide health improvement partnership. In addition to those programs, we have 2 licensed programs that we operate as well, the 245D licensed in-home support program and the Cook County Wilderness Outpatient Treatment Program, and many more. Here's an updated organizational chart for our department. This reflects the 2020 staff positions that were approved in the budget. So that's the SUD treatment coordinator, and daytime crisis responder, and the public health educator, both of which are vacant. We aren't actively posting or recruiting for those positions at this time, but will be in 2020. Another change for this organizational chart is I've done some color coding of the contracted service providers just to show how these are connected to various units within our department. So for example, in yellow, the in-home support program has oversight from Martina Johnson, who's the Adult and Home and Community-Based Services Supervisor. And similarly, the Wilderness Outpatient Treatment Program is very connected to our Children and Family Services unit through CD Case Management. In 2019, we welcomed 5 new staff, 4 of whom were replacing vacancies within the department. We added 1 new position in 2019. So Kathy Ann joined our team in February. She was hired to fill a vacancy that was created when Pat Strand moved to full-time Veteran Service Officer. Olivia came back to PHHS in March. She is an adult services social worker, again filling a vacancy. We had a second vacancy in adult services, which was filled by Beth in July. Matthew was our new position that we hired in June of last year, and that was a position added by reallocating funds that we used to contract with HDC to provide community support services. Finally, Anna just joined the team in December, and she's our new adult mental health case manager. Other staff updates in 2019. Again, we had 3 positions turned over, which is about average for the department. And we've been tracking staff turnover for about the last 7 years, so 3 is kind of on par for what we would expect. We also received some temporary case management support. Beth Ferrone came back on a short-term basis to provide some support in the interim, so really wanted to recognize her for that during transitions. We also, for the first time in many years, welcomed an intern. We had an intern in the public health department. Abby worked with us over the summer months. We have a number of staff who are pursuing degrees and education while they work full-time. So we have Sarah, who is getting her bachelor's. Heidi in social work is getting her master's in social work, and then I am really close to finishing my master's as well. We have a number of staff who, 2 staff actually, who went through our, who went through the ACEs cohort training through the clinic. And then they are now certified train the trainers in the ACEs interface and have come back and trained all of our department staff. Many more staff completed training over the year. Too many to mention, but here in the photograph is Martina Johnson and Julie Kinney, who participated in the Disability Services Odyssey Conference in Duluth and presented a poster on their work with the Innovation Grant in Cook County. Let's see. Program updates. A lot of our efforts as an agency were focused in the area of behavioral health. That's one of our top priorities in our community health improvement plan. And it's also been a focus considering the closure of HDC late last year. I already mentioned that we began providing community support services internally for the first time, so that was a big change programmatically in 2019. In 2019, we also continued to develop the multidisciplinary team for crisis response that was formed in late 2018, but really grew that team in 2019. The image here is a flow chart that was developed by staff and reviewed with that team to really lay out the process flow when someone is having a mental health crisis. What are the steps and how can we access some of the resources that are available here in Cook County? Our 2020 budget also included additional resources to support growing behavioral health services in Cook County. There was a lot of coordination and planning with local partners, both at the clinic, the hospital, and Grand Portage Health and Human Services, in talking about how to continue to address gaps in service I mentioned that 2 staff went through the ACEs cohort training. We also had a number of members of our local mental health advisory council go through that training as well, and just last week trained the rest of the council. In 2019, there were a number of state and federal changes that impacted our department as well. Leadership changes at DHS that were significant. There were the payment errors that were cited by DHS after they began to look at some of their internal controls. Cuts proposed at the federal level to the SNAP program, which caught the interest of our advisory committee and this board, as you directed me to send a letter to our state and U.S. representatives in opposition of those proposed cuts and what that would mean for the people of Cook County. Refugee resettlement was another issue that I didn't expect I would have to learn a lot about in 2019, but was grateful that that came up at our advisory committee, that the group was wanting to have a position, and that I was able to do some research to learn about what that would mean for PHHS. So while it's important to be engaged with what's happening at a state and federal level, it's important to our work. It really drives our funding and our programming. Our focus is ultimately on serving the people of Cook County. In the area of community engagement and health improvement, there was a lot of action in 2019 as we formed a new advisory council for mental health. You've heard me speak about that quite a bit already. Our council has 16 members, including retired mental health professionals, people who have received mental health services, and family members of persons with mental illness. We also developed the Community Health Improvement Plan in 2019. That plan is really driving our work for the next several years towards our shared priorities for improving health in Cook County. In 2019, our Public Health and Human Services Advisory Committee really encouraged us to focus efforts in public health on revising the Cook County Tobacco Ordinance and ensuring that outreach and education was a big part of that effort as well. So the photos here are of our organizational meeting for the local advisory council on top. And then on the bottom is a panel discussion on youth vaping that was held at the ACA. In addition to our local outreach with presentations, we also wrote 11 articles for the Cook County News Herald to talk more about what we do as a department, tell the story of our work from the perspective of our staff who are providing services or in a supervisory role. We also made a plan to regularly share information on our Facebook page and get information out from partners and relevant programmatic updates to share more about the work that we do through social media. Our staff participated in monthly interviews on WTIP. And then we were also in an article that interviewed several counties throughout the state in Post about trends in out-of-home placement. So that photo there is from Heidi, who I again want to thank for being a part of that article and providing the perspective of someone who is intimately involved in that work with families in Cook County. And so I didn't have to pose awkwardly alone in front of the courthouse. So who benefits from PHHS programs? This is a question that I get a lot. Who is receiving services and how many people are served? And I would really argue that everyone benefits from PHHS programming. That includes year-round residents and visitors, and from prenatal to end of life. We truly serve the full spectrum of the population. And I think that, while people might be focused on the number of service recipients, that really through our public health emergency preparedness work, our community health improvement work, that we really benefit all of Cook County in being prepared for disaster, being prepared for infectious disease outbreak by having the plans in place to know how we come together as partners to respond in an emergency. And that really benefits everyone. Our staff and advisory partners also advocate for policy change to improve public services for the future generations. So a conservative estimate is that approximately 18% of the population is enrolled in a program through PHHS. And that's based on medical assistance enrollment alone. Because of the various systems we use, we can't get an accurate, unduplicated number without doing a lot of manually tracking. But again, when Allison Plummer presented here last month, she shared that it was about 950 persons were enrolled in medical assistance, and that's a pretty broad eligibility category. So that's about the largest single program that we have a number of residents enrolled in. A few hard numbers for people who are interested in that. Families and individuals served through adult and home and community-based services. There were 273 work groups open in 2019. A work group could be one individual, it could be a family. And then in the area of adult and home and community-based services, that includes general adult services, adult protection, developmental disability, and waiver case management. These could be people who live in Cook County or Cook County residents who live outside of the county because there isn't the level of service available here locally to meet their needs. In the area of children and family services, which includes adult and children's mental health case management, child welfare, chemical dependency case management, and licensing, there were 284 work groups open in 2019. And again, a work group is essentially a case. That could be a one child receiving mental health case management. It could be a family of 5 or 6 children. And there's also, the many partners, other providers that a worker would be working with a work group. I'm using that word a lot, but there could be court involvement, there could be primary care, mental health providers. So again, it's just a number and it doesn't really reflect the full spectrum of work that goes into providing case management. In the area of economic assistance in healthcare, there were 154 households receiving cash and nutrition assistance, and that's of December. With the financial programs, it's a point in time that we look at in terms of the numbers eligible. And then 539 households enrolled in medical assistance. Minnesota Care or Medicare Savings Program. There were 53 chemical health assessments conducted in 2019 by Greg Barnier, the county licensed drug and alcohol counselor, and then an average of 12 participants each month in the Wilderness Outpatient Treatment Program. And there, again, were more participants in aftercare programming as well. Looking ahead to 2020, some of our goals include continuing to address behavioral health service needs through substance use disorder treatment coordination and behavioral health crisis response are just a couple of the priority areas that were targeted through our budget for 2020. Also increasing capacity in public health staffing to address the goals that were outlined in our community health improvement plan. Some of the projects, policy, and program changes that are on our radar are just the regular ongoing programming and licensing audits that we're subject to by the state and federal government. The 2020 legislative session will be beginning shortly, and some of the things that are on our radar that will specifically impact human services are the Families First Prevention Act, which changes how counties receive funding for foster care. As well as continued implementation of the substance use disorder reforms. So I guess that's it, but I'm happy to take any questions about 2019.
Anyone have questions or comments for Allison?
Impressive work. Thank you.
Busy year.
It was.
What was the outcome of the SNAP?
I do not know the outcome of the proposed changes to broad-based categorical eligibility. That was the one that we were tracking most closely, but I haven't heard. I know that there were a number of challenges to it, but I'm not aware of the status. It's been interesting to watch kind of the things that we've been working on locally and then what ends up happening at a federal level with the tobacco policy and with refugee resettlement as well. So I don't know what the ultimate outcome was for SNAP, but I can bring back a report next month.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think Tobacco 21 I'll use with legislators when they keep saying we can't change all the rules for Cook County. I'll say, hey, the federal government did. We'll see how far that goes. You know, one of the things you touched on in your report is who does public health serve? And I get that question because you get during tax time where people say I shouldn't have to pay for public health and human services because I don't use any of the services. And when you think of all of the programs that we have, you are saving money. You are paying up front. We had the staff changes where we did more of the preventative work, and you look at the work that Greg is doing and the people's lives that we're saving and the impact that those have on families, and when your families and your friends and your neighbors are being served and helped, that is helping you. That is making your community safer, and it is helping you on your bottom line tax bill, and it's really hard to put that into words for people to understand the huge impact that that has. So again, thank you to you and to all of you that serve on these committees and make that difference, because it's so hard to put it into words. What we do here, the preventative work that we do here, the lives that we save here, the people that we lift up and help to be better people. It really, we have an amazing community that I don't think people can find almost anywhere in the state. And what we do for each other is just amazing. So to all of you that live here and are part of the community and who pay your taxes, and you, whether you complain or don't complain, it doesn't matter. It makes a huge difference. Cherry?
Another example of what you're talking about, Heidi, is I think of all the years we would look at the budget and see the high cost of out-of-home placements of children. And one of the things we also talked a lot about was what can PHHS be doing to work with families and to try to do preventive things to help bring the cost of that and the need for out-of-home placements down. And I think if one look at the budget, what the taxpayers on the hook for right now says, look at the effectiveness of that. I mean, we have really had a big decrease in out-of-home placement costs.
So look at how that plays out. So you have one child out of home, and let's say it's a Native American child that has to be placed in a Native American home, and the only placement is outside of Cook County. That means you have parents who are traveling outside of Cook County. That means you have parents who are missing work. You have parents who are not contributing locally to this society. That's where you put all of that into play. You know, does a business have to close its doors because it only has one employee, and that employee is facing a crisis because we didn't offer those preventative services? That's where it impacts your life. Myron?
Yes, I think when I have discussions with people, I talk about cost-benefit issues. And, you know, you invest a certain cost, but you have a benefit that might save you money in the long run and on the preventative issues. And I really want to give credit to Public Health and Human Services staff, and also I think it's worthwhile to commend our community and our nonprofits and our clinic that support this. So, you know, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think in a small county like this, in a small community, we have tremendous opportunities to make a big difference. And I know, being involved in the YMCA here, we had a program working with youth that is designed to really support them to stay in their family and have a place to go and actually have some people that are important in their lives in that setting that will support them and monitor them. And I'm sure there's other organizations as well in the nonprofits. So yes, due diligence to our department, but to our community for supporting this, and especially through its nonprofits.
Thank you. So we will move on to Director's Report.
And I'll be brief. In terms of staff updates, I don't have much to share other than Sarah who last month just received approval to engage in a temporary project in the area of chemical dependency, case management, substance use disorder treatment, has been boots on the ground, running, very, very busy, but really jumping right in and learning more in this role of CD case management. So I just want to recognize Sarah for taking on this additional role, and for Grace and Greg for providing oversight to her as she learns more. Again, she's been really busy. It's a busy time of year for that program, and something that in hindsight we didn't really think about, but Sarah's doing great, and we're just so grateful that she was willing to step into that role of treatment coordination. We're continuing to evaluate needs, opportunities, and requirements for daytime crisis response, and how our agency can fill that role in a more formal capacity as well. And then when Grace Grinaga returns from leave, we'll begin the process of hiring for the public health educator position that was also approved in the 2020 budget. We didn't quite meet the deadline for including the December financial report in the packet for approval in the consent agenda today. It lines up with a number of other deadlines for our fiscal department for year-end and quarterly reporting. So we'll include that next month for your approval. So even though you don't have that in front of you today, just will say that as of 12/31, we're 83% spent of the 2019 budget. But again, we continue to pay bills for 2019 through the end of February. And then we also record 2019 revenue that arrives through March. So because of the billing and receiving deadlines, we won't have that full picture of 2019 until later in the year. And then Lori will be providing a presentation in May of the 2019 financials. Under items for board action, we have a number of action items related to organizational changes in our two advisory committees, the Local Mental Health Advisory Council and PHHS Advisory Committee. Because of the difference in naming of those two committees, we had some discussion at our December Local Advisory Council about what is the difference between a committee and a council, and if these are truly designed to have the same reporting structure, shouldn't they be named the same? So I did some research with the state statute that authorizes the formation of these committees, and did see that they differ in statute. I met with County Attorney Molly Hicken last week to consult with her and get her advice on some of the other discrepancies that I noted between our advisory committee bylaws and state statute. Some of the significant changes will be related to our term limits. We have much longer, more generous term limits in our committee, and Molly is advising that we follow the state statute recommendations, but that we could have a process for honoring those people who have already exceeded those limits, and then would look at making that change going forward. The reason I'm giving you a heads up of this today without having the complete reviewed bylaws before you is that one of the discrepancies we noted is that our bylaws specify that providers of service are not eligible to hold a position as an officer. This is not specified in state statute, so our bylaws are actually more restrictive. Again, I consulted with Molly. I discussed with Jerry and Carla, our co-chairs, via email about what our options might be. So we have a few options, and what I would like to do is, since the bylaws specify that providers of service cannot hold office, I would really like to bring that forward to the committee to make a recommendation before bringing forward your review, which is why we have recommended that Andrea be conditionally appointed as an officer, as she is an employee of Sawtooth Mountain Clinic. But again, I want to honor the committee's recommendation that she be elected an officer. So again, we have options in terms of a variance or revising our bylaws, and we'll bring those forward later in the year, likely in March, after our PHHS Advisory Committee reviews. Also in the board packet was a certificate of timeliness from DHS, recognizing that our department achieved performance standards for both regular and expedited SNAP processing. That's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So want to give kudos to our income maintenance, our financial workers, and the front desk team for their excellent and timely service in that area. Any other questions for me about my report or any of the items for board action?
Any questions for Allison? Okay, and the SNAP timeliness was 96%. So, good job.
And that's the standard that we met, so we may have exceeded that.
Excellent. So items for board action. Oftentimes I ask if we want to do these as a whole, but each one of these has significant importance, so we will do them individually. Public Health and Human Service Advisory Council elected Roger Linehan as chair and Frankie Jericho as vice chair. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve both of those appointments.
I'll move to approve those.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, the Public Health and Human Service Advisory Committee and Local Mental Health Advisory Council bylaws specify that the chairs of each respective council will serve on the PHHS board. Recommending that the PHHS board approve the appointment of Roger Linehan and conditional appointment of Andrea Orris to the Public Health and Human Service Board for 2020, which would be this board, if we're all keeping track of all of our committees, councils, and boards and advisories. So, can I get a motion to approve that?
I motion to approve it.
Support. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Cook County Local Mental Health Advisory Council, Tina Harden, submitted her resignation. I would like for a motion to accept her resignation with regrets.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And the last item for action, recommending that the Public Health and Human Service Board approve the appointment of a new applicant to the Local Mental Health Advisory Council, Pamela Dixon of Grand Marais. Can I get a motion to approve that?
I so move.
Support. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. That was a lot. That was fun. Committee reports. Arrowhead Economic Opportunity, Commissioner Mills.
I missed the December meeting, however, Paul Carlson, the director, has retired, and the new director is Scott Zahorik, and he was the housing director, and I believe also the assistant director before Paul, so that's great news. I don't know if we want to send a letter of recognition to Paul, thanking him for his work.
Can we do that, Allison? From this board? And who would write that
I
letter?
can't see why not.
Can you write that on our behalf? Thank you.
Do you need it? Okay, yeah, thank you.
I'll reach out to you for more
Okay.
information.
And so that's all I have to report there.
Excellent. Arrowhead Health Alliance Joint Powers, Commissioner Mills.
I have nothing to report there.
Arrowhead Regional Corrections, Commissioner DeShaw.
We had a meeting on Friday, we had a presentation, our regular meeting, then we had our joint meeting on a presentation on AJC's 35-day eval program. I'll pass this down, it's something that they just started in November, and I think they've had 4 people go through it so far with success. It's keeping the money in the, I don't know, the Arrowhead District, I guess. It was a pretty interesting thing. They said, Becky said that the kids before would get sent to North Home and Fiskadoo and all these other places for their evals, and 90-some% of the time, they would recommend that they would have treatment at that facility, and I think 1 out of the 5 they've done so far only needed to be in treatment, so it was a pretty interesting presentation. And we have a new director, ARC director, Wally Kostich. He was the
Excellent.
head of probation for years. He's the new ARC director.
Excellent. Anything else? Arrowhead Regional Development, Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Well, ARDC meets once a month in Duluth, and it was an organizational meeting. But I did bring back some summary of the Arrow Agency on Aging. They have a summary plan. I'll just mention a couple of them that they help support. One of them is in Cook County Care Partners receive about $15,000 from ARDC Agency on Aging. One of their goals this year is to support families and friends in their caregiver roles, and to support aging in community with access to a range of services and housing options. So that's 2 of the 5, but those are pretty important for all of us in the Arrowhead area.
Excellent. Community Health Board, Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, our interviewing committee, we made a decision, and it needs to go, and the position was accepted, but it needs to go before the full board before it's,
Suspense day,
before-
suspense.
Yep, oh, yeah. It's very,
We have to
very
wait another month.
exciting, though, yeah. And but that's gonna happen tomorrow, ideally, so.
Excellent.
Oh, I did want to jump back, I'm sorry, to AHA, though.
Okay.
The one thing I did notice, I don't have anything to report from a meeting, but one thing I did notice was that in the governor's bonding package, that the Clarity Project was included in that, and I don't know a whole lot about that. I don't know, Allison, if you knew more about that, but I know it has to do with behavioral health, and I believe in Duluth specifically. It's been talked about at AHA some. Not that that's a done deal, but I was pleased to see that was included.
Thank you. Public Health and Human Service Advisory, your final and last report, you two?
We did meet, and for a last report, I'm happy to turn to Roger Linehan, our new chair. One of the consequential things we did at our meeting this month was to elect Roger as chair and Frankie Jarko as vice chair. And so,
Roger?
go for
Can
it.
you give the 2019 year in review?
Sure.
Well, just to let you know, and we don't have a PowerPoint for you, but we did a number of things during the year, and the impact statement from the advisory committee is, the advisory committee defines areas of need and offers critical perspective about the services PHHS provides. The advisory committee also brings valuable opportunity for our local providers to communicate with each other and stimulate creative development of their own services. Broken down by months, we met every other month, starting last January, and we handled a number of things, including the closure, the gaps in behavioral health services due to the closure of the Human Development Center, particularly with skill-based services like ARMS and CTSS. And the group in January supported unanimously the creation of a contract position within PHHS, which Allison talked about, to provide community support services to persons with mental illness. In March, committee members reviewed and provided feedback on proposed changes to the Cook County burial policy before bringing to the PHS board for approval and adoption. Drafted bylaws for the first local area advisory council for children's and mental health, and those were reviewed. They were revised to have the LAC report directly to the PHHS board rather than through the advisory committee. And we unanimously recommended that be passed. Now, that was that was a very important thing. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long time, and to create a more, I guess you'd say, user-friendly or user-involved advisory council that will not be a part of the PHHS as such, PHHS committee as such. We wanted it to be separate, to have equal standing with the PHHS advisory committee, so that, and that's why both Andrea and I will be coming to meetings, is because these are two separate and equal boards. Heard from the American Lung Association in May about trends in tobacco use by youth and e-cigarettes. And that resulted in having a community meeting, which unfortunately wasn't very well attended, but was an excellent meeting. The board met with American Lung Association as well, and a unanimous motion was passed to support adoption of the Tobacco 21 policy in Cook County, and to recommend a similar presentation from the ALA before this board. Now, I want to say something special, and that is Frankie Jarkow is the one who really pushed this. And it probably would not have gotten done without her support and her keeping us on track. And I think we should all thank her for that. She was very way ahead of the times, because finally the feds caught up with us. So anyway, so that's something that's another good thing I felt that we worked hard on. In July, we heard an update on behavioral health services, including interagency planning with the Clinic Hospital in Grand Portage, the hiring of a community support worker with PHHS. We talked about local efforts to increase marketing of regional resources through Let's Talk and the Birch Tree Center. So making sure that people know what is out there if you need help. And if you are suicidal, or you are depressed, or you're running into problems, you know who you can go to. And there are plenty of numbers out there, and I believe there are more coming. The suicidal hotline will become a 3 number. Has that happened yet, or is that still coming?
Still coming.
Okay. We also reviewed draft community health assessment improvement plan and recommended the reports be made to the stakeholder group involved in the assessment plan development. September, we received a report on the initial meeting of the local advisory council for mental health, updates to the Cook County tobacco ordinance, and local outreach and education efforts. Provided feedback on the revised PHHS Department Customer Service Survey, and the committee also received a summary report from the PHHS Department budget request for 2020. We also received a report on caseload data and trends within the Economic Assistance Program. And the staff reported there was a decline in enrollment for the Child Care Assistance Program and various reasons for the change. November, the committee unanimously recommended sending a letter of support to Cook County Board of Commissioners for adopting the proposed changes to the county's tobacco ordinance to increase the age to purchase commercial tobacco and e-cigarettes in Cook County from 18 to 21. Now, reflecting on our 2019 goals, the committee addressed several of the identified goals for 2019. We addressed behavioral health service gaps and recommended the PHHS begin providing community support services within the agency, which we've already talked about, establishing that local mental health advisory council, providing recommendations on the Cook County tobacco ordinance, and continued promotion of interagency and community collaborations through regular roundtable discussions and engagement with the Community Health Needs Assessment and Health Improvement Plan. Our goals coming up are remain engaged with the Community Health Assessment and Community Health Improvement Plan through regular updates on ongoing initiatives of PHS Advisory Council committees, and the formation of subcommittees or task force to address unmet needs. Use CHIP to drive recommendations and goals. Continued engagement with local, state, and federal policy issues that have an impact on the health, safety, and well-being of Cook County through our roundtable discussions and by making recommendations to this board and to the department. Grow committee memberships, strategically target key partners and service recipients to encourage collaboration and engagement with service needs. Now, both of our councils need that. We need new members, we need more members. Committee strengths, member commitment to supporting and strengthening the service PHHS provides, and has a very strong commitment. Areas for improvement, review our membership roster, and recruit new members to maintain a full membership that is diverse and representative of our community. And that's it.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is the Local Advisory Council for Children's and Adults' Mental Health, and another turning over from Jerry and Carla. The update.
We are happy to have Andrea here, and we'll talk about that group.
Yeah, so we met on January 14th. I guess. Only this much nervous now after sitting here this whole time. We met on January 14th, and we discussed a few different things. The first was the gap in services, since the ECFE program is currently unavailable due to a staffing shortage. After our meeting, I talked to multiple agencies who reported an increase in depression and isolation since the lapse in the program among young mothers. So the council is, trying to come up with ideas to fill that gap temporarily. I've also been in communication with the Department of Education to get a little bit more clarification on the rule changes that happened that made the previous ECFE teacher ineligible, just so I could have a better handle on what that meant. There are some informal parent-led groups, but after talking with some members of those groups, they cited their main concern was lack of leadership. And while they informally meet, they don't have anyone to sort of take the lead. Nobody really feels comfortable taking the lead. They just, things happen when they happen, and people would really appreciate that service back. A lot of people miss it. We also had a condensed ACE training by 3 of the advisory council members, and we discussed the importance of adverse child experiences as a broad and complex concern among communities, and how it would create a common language and a comprehensive support system to build community capacity and foster a more thriving community for people. We discussed the implications of T21 on tobacco-addicted youth, and how there needs to be a more comprehensive community support program for those youth, and how, programs can pull together and work together to come up with prevention and cessation tools and resources for youth that are now addicted and don't have access to tobacco. A work group met to develop a mental health services map to better streamline the community's ability to receive services, and also to identify service gaps. It would include all of the local services, and also resiliency, well-being services, as well as sort of a preventative measure besides the care for depression and things like that. A way to keep yourself better in the beginning. The next meeting for that group is on February 6th at 9:30. And the next meeting for the local advisory council is February 11th at 1 o'clock.
Excellent. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Go ahead and breathe now. It's all
I
good.
gotta breathe that whole time. Thank you. I need one of those watches that say it's time to breathe.
Yes, you'll get zapped.
I have one.
And just, again, thank you, Frankie, because Joni, when she was here, was updating the tobacco ordinance, and so it really did take a champion to finalize it, so thank you. Healthcare planning, Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Couple of highlights. Kay Grenlin from Care Partners said the Memory Cafe, which is at the Hub, or now previously known as the Senior Center. So the Memory Cafe will be the second Tuesday of each month, so the next one coming up in February is the 13th. North Shore Health by Kimber, she announced that it was now possible, due to the state of Minnesota passing this, that electronic monitoring will be available in rooms of the folks who are in the care center. It is a multi-step application and a consent process between the person in the care center and their family, but it is now available if people so choose to do that. Kay Serba gave a good report on some of the site visits that's going on, but it was before her announcement that there will be a full-time pharmacy at the clinic probably by the end of the year or in January. So that was interesting news on that part.
So does Kimber think that her residents will be receptive to electronic monitoring?
Perhaps a few.
Okay.
Yeah. It's too early to know yet what the implications are with the 24/7 monitoring.
Well, I know with my grandmother, she had a couple falls last year, and so we talked about that, and she called it an ankle bracelet, so,
Okay.
which we all know has a different
Yes.
connection to it, so I was
That
just
would, yeah.
curious if people liked that or not.
I know,
Isn't
yeah.
it a totally voluntary thing?
It
Yes,
is,
it
sure.
is.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, for Kimber to move it forward, she had to have some people that were interested, so I was just
Yeah.
curious how that was received. It's not received well in my family.
That's it.
North Shore Collaborative, Commissioner Mills,
We will be meeting shortly.
shortly. Okay. Sarah, just an update on emergency preparedness will now be Commissioner Mills and Commissioner Bersheim for the next agenda. But on this agenda, it's still Storley and Bersheim. Do you have an update?
I think we didn't meet in December.
Okay. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? Okay, I have chocolate left. That is for the good of the order. With that, we will adjourn, and the committee of the whole will meet at 10 a.m.
We meet and say no.